Title: The Velocity Gap. Machine Speed Coordination and the Friction of Settlement. Flint West reporting. Whenever civilization's ability to coordinate outpaces its infrastructure's capacity to settle, the resulting friction creates pressure for new settlement architectures. Today, autonomous economic agents are introducing machine speed coordination to a human-native financial system designed for legacy latencies. The defining question of this economic transition is not which money wins, but which architectures can close this velocity gap by minimizing friction between coordination and irreversible settlement. Section 1. The portable pattern. Start with the pattern, because everything else sits downstream of it. Human civilization exhibits a remarkably consistent behavior. As coordination speeds up, settlement eventually falls behind. It does not happen immediately, but it always happens. And when it does, the system starts to strain. You can see it clearly. Coordination speed increases. This leads to a mismatch with static settlement. That mismatch creates friction and capital inefficiency. This leads to an architectural transition layer. And eventually, a lower friction equilibrium is restored. That sequence is not theoretical, it is observable. When a society can organize activity faster than it can finalize outcomes, something breaks, not visibly at first, but structurally. Friction appears, capital gets trapped, time gets introduced where it should not exist, and at that point the system has only one option: adapt. So it builds, it introduces layers, or it replaces the architecture entirely. Now, to keep this clean, we define the primitives. No ambiguity. Coordination is the organization of activity. Information flows, decisions, interactions. It is fast, it is cheap, it is reversible. Settlement is finality, the point at which something is done, locked, irreversible. It is slower, it is expensive, it carries weight. Friction is what happens when those two drift apart. Latency, inefficiency, risk. Architecture is the response, the system designed to close the gap. That is the entire framework. Simple, portable, and it holds. Section 2. The lessons of monetary history. Now apply it. Money is the cleanest example. For most of human history, gold worked, not because it was perfect, but because it matched the speed of the world around it. Humans moved slowly, information moved slowly, trade moved slowly, and gold settled slowly. Everything was aligned. You could carry it, hand it over, walk away. Done. No layers, no intermediaries, no abstraction. That is important, because it tells you something. Gold did not fail because it was flawed. It failed because the world changed. Then came the Industrial Revolution, and everything accelerated. Telegraphs, railways, steamships, then later digital communications. Suddenly, coordination moved at a completely different speed. Orders could be sent instantly, trades could be agreed across continents, but settlement remained physical. Still gold, still slow. You get this. Industrialization mismatch. Coordination speed driven by telegraph and steam becomes fast, near instant. Settlement speed based on physical gold remains slow, taking weeks or months. That gap is the entire story. Civilization did not abandon gold overnight. It could not. So it did what it always does. It layered. Fractional reserve banking, correspondent networks, clearinghouses, central banks, eventually fiat, not as a philosophical choice, as an engineering response. Modern fiat is not random. It is a transition architecture, a system designed to process high-speed coordination while delaying final settlement. It absorbs the gap. That is the point. This content is brought to you by Bobby Giggs. Promote your brand here and reach a wide audience across platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Follow the links in the description to get started. Section 3. The Machine-Native Mismatch. Now bring it forward. Same pattern, different actors. We are introducing a new participant into the system. Autonomous economic agents. Call them what you want. Agentic artificial intelligence, embodied artificial intelligence, robotics, infrastructure systems. It does not matter. They share the same properties. They are intelligent. They are programmable. They can act, and they operate continuously. At machine speed. That is new, because everything before this was built around human constraints. Markets open, markets close, banks batch, systems delay, compliance pauses. Everything assumes human participation. Now compare that with what is arriving. The new velocity gap. Machine coordination, driven by agentic artificial intelligence, operates at microseconds continuously. Human native settlement, traditional systems, operates over days, intermittently. That is not a small mismatch. That is a structural break. An artificial intelligence agent can negotiate, execute, optimize, and transact thousands of times per second, across borders, across systems, across time zones, but then it hits settlement. And settlement says, come back in 3 days. That does not work. It cannot work. Not at scale. Not for machines. That is the velocity gap. Section 4. The requirements of the next era. So what happens next? Same answer as before. Friction emerges, pressure builds, architectures evolve, and in the meantime, bridges. Because nature does not tolerate gaps for long. It fills them with layers, with hybrids, with temporary solutions. Now, here is the important part. Machines do not care about narratives. They do not care about history. They do not care about institutions. They care about performance, measurable performance. So they optimize for availability, latency, programmability, interoperability, cost, reliability, and finality. Nothing else. If a system satisfies those constraints, it gets used. If it does not, it gets bypassed. That leads to a very clear requirement set. Machine native settlement. At the top, below it, continuous 24/7 uptime, programmable smart contracts, rapid finality with irreversibility. That is not ideology. That is engineering, and it leads to an important conclusion. This is not a winner-takes-all environment. It never is during transitions. You will get permission systems, permissionless systems, hybrids, overlays, legacy integrations, all coexisting, all competing, all absorbing pressure. So the question shifts away from which money wins, toward which architectures reduce friction, which ones close the gap, because the velocity gap is the constraint. Not politics, not preference, not ideology. Constraint. And constraints decide outcomes, always. So the end game is simple, not immediate, not clean, but simple. Architectures that close the gap survive. Architectures that do not get routed around. That is it. That is the pattern. And it is already in motion. Flint West, signing off.